Welcome to Crosspoint.
Welcome to Crosspoint.
Welcome to Crosspoint.
We are an inclusive faith community
seeking to live out the loving, just, and generous way of Jesus.
We are participants in a long tradition.
It's less concerned with doctrines and dogma that demand total agreement,
but a life to be lived, enjoyed, and given away to others.
What unites us is a growing awareness that life is precious.
That we are made by love in order to love.
This community is comprised of and affirms the entire human family.
Regardless of race, age, creed,
physical abilities, marital or economic status,
gender identity, or sexual orientation.
So, if you're curious and have come to see,
if you are tired and have come to rest,
if you are grateful and have come to share,
if you are wounded and have come to heal,
if you're joyful and have come to celebrate,
if you are uprooted and have come to belong,
welcome home.
Welcome home.
Welcome home.
Welcome home.
What child is this who lay to rest on Mary's lap is sleeping, whom angels greet with anthems sweet, while shepherds watch are keeping? This is Christ the King, whom shepherds guard and angels sing. Haste, haste to bring him, Lord, the babe, the Son of Mary. So bring him incense, gold, and myrrh. Come, peasant king, to own him. The King of kings salvation brings. Let loving hearts enthrone him. Raise, raise a song on high. The Virgin sings her lullaby. Joy, joy, for Christ is born, the babe, the Son of Mary. This is Christ the King, whom shepherds guard and angels sing. Haste, haste to bring him, Lord, the babe, the Son of Mary. The babe, the Son of Mary.
You know, if you think about how we're in the middle of a pandemic, and then you take how racialized our society is, A lot of us are walking around with low-grade anxiety or depression. We're feeling, in many ways, just disoriented. And I'm really thinking that the church needs a reclamation. And it's that reclamation of joy and also celebration. But it's not this kind of like joyous, celebration, naivete celebration, where a mob of people come together to worship with no masks on. I think, frankly, God will have something to say about that. And we look at the book of Micah, and we know how God felt about noisy, joyous celebrations that ignored the plight of the least, the last, the lost, the most vulnerable, and those who maybe have pre-existing conditions, maybe those who have a comorbidity of factors that puts them at risk, right? So that's a specific type of worship. But when I think about joy, it comes from this authentic place that I believe is just kind of the flip side of suffering. And in many ways, you look at our African American tradition, which is really American history, and how the historical Black church, in the midst of suffering, in the midst of experiencing real indignities at the hands of not only the government, but also the state, the police, people, somehow, some way, in the church space, in the beloved community, they were able to live out a type of worshipful resistance that took an honest assessment of what was happening in the world, took an honest assessment of Jim Crow, took an honest assessment that there were lynchings happening, they took an honest assessment of segregation, and I could go on. And yet, through the hope of the gospel, by the way, that they were given in a distorted form, they were somehow able to reclaim it and find, in a sense, a song and a story of liberation, even in the midst of, in the shadow of American empire, which is what it is and what it was. And it harkens back in many ways to when I think about the Exodus narrative and the liberation narrative, when they crossed the Red Sea, the people of Israel crossed the Red Sea. The first thing, and this was a woman-led celebration, the first thing they do is they celebrate, and Miriam begins to sing, and they begin to sing songs of celebration that were actually connected and not disembodied from slavery and their oppression and the story of making bricks without straw and all those kinds of things. So even the celebration, right? The heavenly celebration was rooted in a story and a communal memory of suffering, yet God in the midst of it show God's self strong in that. And I think that's where the joy comes. It's not through bypassing or glossing over trauma, but it's in taking it on courageously and inviting the Spirit, inviting God into that place of trauma, inviting community, because it's not something that you do alone, and allowing your trauma to be transformed into, like the old church used to say, it becomes eventually the testimony. And it could be a living testimony. You know, it's not one of those like, this is where I was, this is where I am, everything's all good. But in our days, we're living through complex grief with all the images that we see in the world, social media, modern day lynchings, police killings. We're people that are experiencing grief. And I think the greatest act of resistance is when we can claim joy in our Black bodies, in our brown bodies, in our Asian bodies, in our Native American bodies, in bodies that have been ostracized and marginalized. but Christ loves everybody.
My brother, my sister, God love you and God bless you. My brother, my sister, God love you and God bless you. And may God hold us all in those almighty hands of love. May God hold us all in those almighty hands of love.
My brother, my sister, God love you and God bless you. My brother, my sister, God love you and God bless you. And may God hold us all in those almighty hands of love. May God hold us all in those almighty hands of love. Bring me a higher love. Bring me a higher love. Oh, bring me a higher love. It's that higher love I've been thinking of.
My brother, my sister, God love you, God bless you. My brother, my sister, God love you and God bless you. May God hold us all in those almighty hands of love. May God hold us all in those almighty hands of love. Bring me a higher love. Bring me a higher love. Oh, bring me a higher love. Yes, it's that higher love I've been thinking of. Bring me a higher love. Bring me a higher love. Oh, bring me a higher love. It's that higher love I've been thinking of. My brother, my sister, God love you and God bless you. My brother, my sister, God love you and God bless you. May God hold us all in those almighty hands of love. May God hold us all in those almighty hands of love.
Hey, good morning, Crosspoint. Thanks for tuning in wherever you are in the world today and participating with this community. First of all, I just need to brag on all of you for a moment. As of today, collectively, we have all donated nearly 700 gifts for 79 different families in an effort to infuse joy and love to people in need this Christmas. And that's just flat out amazing. And again, these aren't random gifts. These are specifically requested gifts by each member of these families that we've spoken with. And it is really such a beautiful thing that we've gotten to be a part of. And in addition to that, you've also donated over 80 gift cards to support foster kids and the families that foster them this holiday season. And so friends, if we want to be known by anything, we want to be known for how we love. And this is one of those moments where together we've shown up in a big way that's going to feel extremely personable to hundreds of different people. And so I'm so incredibly proud to link arms with all of you in this. And just to let you know, we currently have about 100 different gifts left on the Sign Up Genius. And so if you've missed your opportunity so far and wanted to participate, and maybe you just space it during the craziness of the season, you can still go to crosspoint.org/joy to the world. Today, select a gift to purchase, do some quick shopping, and you can drop it off on Crosspoint's campus anywhere from 4 to 8 p.m. tonight, Sunday, December 12th. Or you can have it mailed to the church as long as it arrives by Tuesday, December 14th. All those details will be on that site, again, crosspoint.org/joy to the world. Now, just as a reminder, this next Sunday, December 19th, we'll be premiering our weekly online service as normal, which you can watch when it premieres at 10 a.m. or on demand at your convenience. And then that Sunday evening, December 19th, for those of you local to the Raleigh-Durham area, we'll be having an outdoor candlelight Christmas service on our campus from 6:30 to 8 p.m. It's designed for all ages. We're going to sing some carols. We're going to have a brief message. We'll talk about programming plans for 2022 in person and have different activities for kids and their families, a photo booth to take Christmas pictures in, and just have some good space to be together. The following week, I'll put out a video explaining programming plans for 2022, and then on Christmas Eve, December 24th, we'll be releasing our online Christmas service. Now, this is something we've been working on for the past couple months and really are so very excited to share it with you because it's going to be fantastic. And we hope you're able to carve out some time to experience it at some point over your Christmas holiday. And our hope is that it moves and challenges you, that it makes you laugh out loud, that it infuses you with the spirit of Christmas and be something that you and anyone you share it with will love. And then lastly, if you want to contribute financially to Crosspoint to fund all that we do together, to love and serve people, whether that's a part of your regular generosity or whether it's a part of a year-end giving that you'd like to help catalyze the good this community can do together into the beginning of this next year, you can do that by going to crosspoint.org/contribute. There's information there on how you can contribute via check or credit or debit card, as well as text or PayPal, bank transfer, stocks, all those different kinds of things. As always, thanks so much for leveraging your generosity, believing we can make much more of a significant difference in people's lives when we join our generosity together rather than just trying to go about it alone. Crosspoint, thanks for being you and striving to love shockingly well.
Hey, Crosspoint. So today I've surrounded myself with many things that help me remember things that bring me joy. When somebody mentions the word joy, I think of books, my family, in picture form today because they're at school or at work at the moment. Cats, although the representation I have today is stuffed because I have a couple of really allergic people in my family, but I love nothing more than to curl up with a cat on my lap. And I probably spend way too much time looking at feeds like Bodega Cats and Cats of Instagram because I think cats are just delightful jerks. But other things bring me joy too, giving back to the world, glimpsing kindness and goodness in unexpected places. But I also have blankets and tea and things that remind me of my incredible friendships. Books, because I love both research and a really good fiction, and a good cup of coffee or tea to slow me down or to have a good conversation. And strangely, the things that I think of when I think of the word joy have very little, if any, connection to my religion, which by extension is also a major component of my job. Although I would include my job and my coworkers, but not my religion in my list of things that sometimes bring me joy. Because when I think of religion, I think of sitting on the hard pews as a child, trying desperately to be still during an incredibly long service, and my mom giving me that mom look from her seat at the church piano every single time that my bench creaked, because I knew I was going to get it when I got home. But it was so hard to sit and pay attention. Or I think of religion and I think of endless lists of things I was not supposed to do or like in order to please God and to be a really good Christian. And really it was just a list of reminders of ways that I would never fully be able to measure up. And this list, of course, only got longer and became, as I became a teenager and then an adult. And why is it that the things that immediately come to my mind when someone asks me what brings me joy are not the things my Sunday school teachers told me would, but rather when I think about joy, I think about moments of freedom that are free of burden and pretense and made up of authenticity and simplicity and laughter and peace, moments that are not human-made, but that give us glimpses into what it means to truly be alive, to be truly ourselves, and to be part of one another in the world around us. And it wasn't until I loosened my grip on perfection that I began to find joy in moments of my spirituality as well. But most often the things that I find joy in are not the things that I have planned to find joy in, but really in these unexpected pleasures and reminders in my life. These are mostly things that I've actually got very little control over. The colors of a sunset, being forgiven before I know I needed it, the reminder that simple things are gifts, the beautiful way that relationships grow and change when I get an unexpected extra few minutes for a cup of tea or time with my family and friends. The laughter of my children, a sacred moment with my spouse, the joy of giving to others. These are the joys that bubble up from the inside out, and they're both mystery and miracle when they encompass us, and they are not created. There's no way to plan for these moments of joy, although we often try to do it, don't we? But really just a date on our calendar doesn't guarantee that joy will be experienced. And I think that really might just be us trying to schedule our happiness. Because we often experience these little glimmers of joy in some of our darkest moments. And most of us certainly don't plan or schedule those. And you might have already guessed that the Advent theme for today is joy. Now, joy in the New Testament book of Luke is introduced early on, first to announce the upcoming and unexpected birth of Jesus' cousin, John. And that makes sense, right? It's not difficult to imagine babies bringing pure joy. We've all seen that, just in their smiles and their giggles and their laughter. But just a few verses later, joy shows up again as angels proclaim it to a group of unknown, unnamed shepherds, kind of the bottom of the social totem pole. Their few short verses, they're dirty farm animals, they find their way to the manger with the Holy Family, and they become a permanent part of our yearly celebrations. The more I think about it, I bet they would be completely flabbergasted to learn that their story of joy is told every year by countless people, and that their images and figurines are a part of sacred art, that they sit on our mantles, that they're children's toys. So the angels, when they came to the shepherds, they said in this field at night to announce the birth of Jesus, the angels said, "Do not be afraid, for behold, I bring you good news of great joy." I feel like we've probably all heard that verse before. And we could sit here and parse the Greek. We could talk about all the times the word joy, chara, is used in the New Testament text, somewhere between around 155 times. But what I find myself more interested in this season of Advent is the darkness that the shepherds found themselves in before and after the message from the angels. The joy that the angels proclaimed to them was so unexpected and therefore potentially terrifying. I mean, who expects angels to show up in the sky? That the angels had to first tell the shepherds not to be afraid before they could even deliver the message of joy. Joy can be like that sometimes. Sometimes joy is buried so deep, or it's so camouflaged, and it shows up so unexpectedly that it can be shocking until we realize what it is that it's showing us, or that it's even joy showing up at all. And don't forget that the shepherds were sitting in darkness that night. They were in darkness before the angels showed up, and they returned to darkness after the angels left. I do not doubt for a minute that after the angels left, the men questioned if they had really seen and heard the angels when the angels left and when they found themselves encompassed by this darkness again. Did that just happen? They had to have been asking themselves that question, because when the angels left, they found themselves in darkness again, and things looked the same as they had. Their joy was sandwiched between large doses of human reality. They had to be shepherds of their sheep before and after the angels came. The night was still cold. They still had responsibilities. These responsibilities and their lives didn't disappear because they had experienced a few moments of joy. But the goal and the point is they were able to experience joy in the middle of the dark, and it did change everything. It completely reoriented them. It reoriented their lives. And this seems to be the character of joy. You know, when we look at the Bible in the New Testament, Jesus never actually asked that we celebrate or remember his birth, just his life and his sacrifice. Christians actually didn't celebrate Nativity till almost 400 years after Jesus was born. And when the church chose the season of Christmas, the season they were going to celebrate Christmas, there were already numerous established secular celebrations that had been going on for a long time. There were celebrations for midwinter, for solstice, Saturnalia in Rome, celebrations for the end of harvest. It was already a scheduled season of time off. It was role reversals when you stopped working and you took a break. It was a time for breaks from the ordinary. And by placing this Christ Mass at this time of year, the Christian leadership guaranteed that it wouldn't be overlooked, although it really was difficult to ever fully Christianize Christmas, because the previous festivals that were being celebrated were times of drinking and celebration, on revelry and rowdiness and freedom. They were not really meant for young children a lot of the time. And it wasn't until we Protestants decided to reform things that we determined that Christmas joy had to be much more scheduled and containable. And Christmas was actually even banned by Christians in several places, many times throughout history, because of its uncontrollableness. I mean, really, I guess you could say that these were the first wars waged on Christmas, but they were waged by Christians. They were battles to erase Christian Christmas, not to get the phrase Merry Christmas on coffee cups or back in schools. History is important because Christians thought that the joy that was happening in natural areas and the joy of Christmas that had become engulfed in it was just too savage. It was too uncontainable. And it actually wasn't until the 1800s that Christmas was transformed into a family holiday. And that's only because many people had moved from rural areas to urban ones because of the Industrial Revolution and the idea of pastoral shepherds in a field and hay and manger with animals and troughs and a baby sleeping there. It moved the celebration from one where children should avert their eyes, they shouldn't be in attendance because of the things going on, to one that was more laser focused on children. Plus, Jesus had been a child. Let Christmas be a time to focus on children and our childlike hearts. Christmas had been reoriented. There's other reasons we celebrate Christmas when we do. The reason that we begin Christian calendars in the darkest time of the year. We all begin our lives in the dark. I mean, for 9 months, we grow inside dark wombs, away from all light. And it isn't until we've developed enough in the dark that we're able to be birthed into something new. And perhaps darkness is where the seeds of joy can be felt the strongest. Most seeds need darkness before they need light. And perhaps darkness makes joy more easy to recognize. Dark places can be the best places for growth and transformation. A time of our coming face to face with our anchors, with our beliefs, a time to ask ourselves what we most rely on, and what joy offers us the most real meaning. And often we aren't able to see those things until we're actually sitting in the dark. And often it isn't until we come face to face with those things that something else is able to be birthed. In the book, A Woman's Lectionary for the Whole Church by the Reverend Dr. Will Gaffney, there's a parallel biblical reading that's often read with this story of the shepherds in Luke. And if you've ever used a lectionary, these passages can be found paired together. So this passage is from Isaiah 26, and it reads like this: Holy One, in distress they sought you. They pressed out a whispered prayer when your chastening was on them. Just as an expectant mother writhes in labor and cries out in her pangs when her birthing time is near, thus were we because of you, Holy One. We too were expectant. We writhed in labor, but it was as though we birthed only wind. No victories had to be won on earth, neither do the inhabitants of the world fall. Your dead shall live, their corpses shall rise. Awake and sing for joy, you who dwell in the dust. For your dew is a radiant dew, and the earth shall release those long dead. So at first read, this is a really interesting passage for Advent, especially when it's read in partnership with the declaration of joy to the shepherds. This is a passage of lament. The shepherds is a kind of passage of celebration. The people in this passage are in distress and unable to praise God, and we might say that they're joyless. This passage uses the language of birth to talk about life beyond death, life beyond the darkness, or maybe in the midst of it. And the Hebrew Bible often uses the language of pregnancy and birth, two mysteries of human existence, to describe this experience of human crisis and transition. And this language isn't only designated for women. It's used to describe the experience of men as well. And God himself is often described feeling or acting like a woman in childbirth. This passage is the prayer of a people who've been sitting in the darkness and pain and uncertainty, and they have not been able to deliver themselves. Their efforts have birthed only wind. And then God acts as their midwife, their deliverer. Out of the darkness, new life is birthed. Even in the darkness, joy can be found. The people in this passage were waiting in anticipation, and their deliverance, their rebirth, was the source of their joy. The shepherds experienced joy in the middle of the darkness. And this is what Advent reminds us of. Anticipation and expectation and joy are found both in the light and the darkness. Sometimes we forget that second part. Author and pastor Barbara Brown Taylor, in her book, Learning to Walk in the Dark, states, "I've learned things in the dark that I could never have learned in the light. Things that have saved my life over and over again, so that there's really only one logical conclusion. I need darkness as much as I need light. And most of the time we spend trying to avoid the darkness. Sometimes that's right where we need to be, because we can't experience birth until we've experienced dark. And in this darkest part of the year, let us not forget that joy is often most recognizable in the dark. And it is absolutely found in both the light and the dark." So where does that leave us in regards to our own joy? What brings you joy? Could you list a ton of things behind you? And really those are just surface things that bring about joy that is really not replicable. Each experience of joy is unique. But let's start with the question, what brings you joy? And then, quite simply, let's be open to finding and experiencing the miracle and mystery of joy in unexpected and expected places. And not quite so simply, for those of us in the dark right now, know that it is okay to accept the miracle of the moments of joy. There's no guilt or shame in allowing joy to find you in the darkness and in your pain. And although moments of joy can't really be scheduled, it's okay to plant yourself in places and situations where it may be found, and things you know that often bring you joy. Maybe this means finding a way to give back to others or to the world in some way, to do a selfless act. Maybe it means making space for moments of celebration, of quiet reflection, or doing something that you really enjoy. It's also okay if joy is not easily found. It's also okay to be encompassed by joy and to be reminded that darkness is not all that there is. And wherever we are, wherever we feel we are this season, when we think about joy, let us allow joy to reorient us. Merry Christmas, Crosspoint.
Thank you for joining us today, and welcome home. If you are in need of assistance during this crisis, please reach out at crosspoint.org/help.